I made sure I put my image on the screen. I don't always do that, but I decided to go ahead and give it a try. So this is my starting screen. I have 5 minutes. I just, sometimes I'll talk about what's coming up. Sometimes I'll talk about what's going on in my life while the clock is winding down. But the actual live stream doesn't start until after that timer gets done. I am going to try to send a chat to myself to see how well the chat box is set up, to make sure it is working, because it often takes me at least 2 attempts to get one of the chat messages to send. So to try that, let's see here. I'm just going to start with a simple hello. See if that goes. And there it is. Okay, and actually, alright, so I want it to be a little smaller, I think. Actually, it looks alright, I think. Let's see how far my chat box goes. I'm going to write one more message that is a little bit longer. This way I can see how well it handles a few more words on my chat. Okay, so I'm going to try to make the font a little bit smaller. So it looks like I had a problem with this earlier on my Handmaid's Tale live stream. It looks like the setup for the chat box seems to be extended to all my themes. I didn't realize it would do that. I thought that each theme would have its own separate chat box, but it definitely seems like whatever changes I made on the previous theme is also changing the settings on this one. Okay, that might be okay. Anyway, let's see what we got. Oh, I still got my glasses on. I was mowing the lawn earlier, and I have my sunglasses from mowing the lawn. Oh. And I've got, like, pieces of grass or something, whatever kicked up while I was mowing the lawn on my back. It's pretty gross. Alright. A little bit less than a minute. I am just checking over my notes to start out our live stream. I will be kind of going over the gist of the show. I have one short clip from Facebook, I think. Facebook or Instagram. I think it's Instagram that I'm gonna show, and then I'll go over my favorites and least favorites. All of that happy jazz. Almost ready. This is Venus Brown. I am back with another live stream. This is going to be a Deadloch Afterwatch. I will do one each week per episode. So I know that all of these episodes have already been dropped by Amazon Prime, but I only watch one a week, and that is so that it gives me time to digest everything. It gives me time to record my reactions. It gives me time to set this up and get notes for it and stuff like that. I am not going to put the reactions up right now. Those will be put up later on sometime. I don't know exactly when. But anyway, I watched the first episode. It was very similar humor to the last season. Same people doing the same stuff. Making the same kind, like I wondered with the changes that occurred with Eddie Radcliffe towards the end of the season, if she would be a little bit of a different type of character now that she seems to be more on board with this stuff. And I would say that still it's the same kind of hijinks, it's the same kind of character, it's the same, like, being in denial, not wanting to be involved with things. So that was interesting, but maybe for different reasons. Anyway, so the gist of this episode, in my opinion, we got kind of a conclusion to what actually happened with Bushy. Like, they came back to Darwin to try to figure out what happened with Bushy. Did he get murdered? Who murdered him? That kind of thing. And it ends up being that he committed suicide. So very quickly, like, wrapped up the whole thing, and then they ended up having to go to another case. And Eddie didn't want anything to do with it. Eddie was like, okay, you guys are done. You can leave. Go back. I'm going to just do my own thing. I'll keep myself busy for a while. Like I said, kind of in denial, but just because of the way things went, there ends up being this other case that Dulcie gets them involved in, and it turns out, so when they told us at the end of the last season that they were going to be going back to Darwin, which is where Eddie was from. And then when they gave us information for the next season, they said, oh, but they're going to end up getting involved with this other case that's in this other part of Australia. Still hot and sweaty like Darwin, but not the same place. And I thought it was going to be like, okay, we're stepping away from his home front and going somewhere else, and they're all going to be in a kind of uncomfortable situation, a place that they aren't used to, whatever. But it actually turns out that this was, I think, Eddie's childhood home, and it's a home that he does not care to remember, that he does not care to be part of. So anyway, that's my gist. Like, we have the one case wraps up because it turns out to be a suicide, and I don't know, maybe that suicide will turn out to be wrong. The information they had on the case previously turned out to be wrong. This could be wrong also, but for right now, we're under the assumption that Bushy committed suicide, and now they're on this other case, and it's taking him back to his home where he really doesn't want to be. Now, oh yeah, I'm going to put on a little clip. This is going to be a kind of, I'm hoping it will be for the next episode, because it has not happened this episode yet. But I'm hoping that what we see in this clip, at least some of it, is in the next episode. So, and this is going to be one of the other characters that was on the previous season, who I really liked. And, yeah, I'll just start it off as well. Let's go to my my viewing scene. And so you see who I'm talking about? Our forensic girl that had not finished her forensic schooling, and she was with a fucking awful fiance who was her forensic teacher, who he just didn't treat her well, and he acted like she couldn't possibly do forensics because she performed so poorly in one of his tests. But we don't know what his test was like. We don't know how he was as a teacher, but as a person, he seems to be pretty...
Cadaver dog, because according to the office manager, Diane, we're in the same pay bracket.
Yeah, well, I'd get him away from the water, big ice. He's in the lunch position there.
The lunch position, ma'am? Oh, shivers. Toby, come on. Toby, here, boy. Toby, come on. Toby, good boy. Isn't he so cute? Yeah, we're all supposed to be on the backpacker case, but our boss, the prof, sent us here for the day. But I don't mind because I'm back with my work mums.
So, Abby, no, sorry, I wasn't going to do that.
Oh, you
happening? No, that's good.
Oh, you didn't want to...
No,
okay,
good.
Cool. Okay, how is this investigation going?
Hey, did you hear that? That's not a spacecraft.
I assure you, I did not think it was.
They hover.
Run! Eddie, leave it!
No, it knows stuff. All right, I want to talk about Sunday night at the pub.
I don't know about it knowing stuff, but whoever is operating it probably knows stuff. All right, so I just wanted to show that because I'm excited to see her. I hope she is on the next episode. I'm assuming she will be. But anyway, all right. So now that is done, I'm going to kind of go over some of my favorites and least favorites. So I actually, when I was going over my favorites and least favorite, I started with the piece of shit of the episode. That was the first thing I came up with, which would be whoever I think was the worst person in the episode. That may be worst acting, but it may also be just like bad person in general, like their character was bad. And this wasn't even somebody that was actually officially in the episode. What I said was, whoever did not wrap up the reports that were coming out from their previous case, who allowed Dulcie to just like, who did not vindicate Dulcie, because Dulcie was actually the reason that case actually got wrapped up appropriately, and instead they left this thread that somehow they completely botched the case. They were the ones at fault for all this stuff going wrong, when really they were the only reason shit was figured out. They were the only reason that a lot of those people were saved. And as she said, one of the people that died, that they were saying, oh, she let 3 innocent people die, like one of the people that died was the serial killer, the person that was actually engaging in these things in the first place. And the guys that came up there that claimed to have saved the case, they had it all wrong the whole time. So to me, whoever it was that is wrapping up these reports, the journalists or whoever's doing it, the people on Reddit that they said were spreading information to them about this case, like they did not make sure that Dulcie was vindicated when her and Eddie were the ones that actually solved that shit. They were the ones that figured out what was going on. They certainly blundered a lot of shit at the beginning, but I don't feel like it was totally their fault, and they were the ones that actually got the shit right when it's all said and done. Alright, now my VIP. So we had these two, I think they were families that do these boat tours, something like that like fighting and arguing, and you had the one boating tourist family and Eddie and his dad, like, they're like in these fights, like arguing and don't get along at all. And at the end of the episode, what gets them to actually shut the fuck up, start working together and actually communicating with each other? The one family's dad was dead in the water, like his head was in the water. It took that dead dad to get them to shut the fuck up, stop fighting with each other, and actually start working together. So I say, what was his name? Dead Dawn, the Daryl dad. So Don Daryl, I guess, was his name. So his head showing up in that body of water, to me, that was the VIP of the episode. Because of him showing up dead, he got them to actually work together. It's terrible that he died. And I know I'm smiling and laughing because the show is just so comedic and satirical and funny, and so even these awful things that are going on, it's still like, it's hard not to laugh and smile. So to me, the fact that Don Daryl ends up, at least his head ends up showing up at the end, his head is like the VIP of the episode because he got them all to work together and stop arguing for like a minute at least. Now, my favorite scene. Once we start getting some information about why Eddie is so upset about being here, he's trying to hide himself, or she's trying to hide herself. She doesn't want to associate with these people. Like, once we start to get to that position where we understand this was her home, that she doesn't want to be a part of this home, she doesn't like the place, and that there is this rift between her family and this other family, she starts, Dulcie starts to say that they have to stop, they have to help the people in this town. They've got to figure out what's going on. They've got to do it for the town. And Eddie is like, no, we do not. These people don't deserve this. This town doesn't care about anybody. The people in this town, they don't care about anybody. So, like, her, like, really expressing that frustration and giving a fucking explanation of why she's so frustrated with her hometown. Like, I resonated with that. Not that my hometown necessarily was like that, but I lived in a place that was, it reminded me of that. I felt like that. But the people that were there, they were awful. They were snooty. They didn't seem to give a shit about anybody unless they came straight from that town. And so, like, the feelings that she had about the people of the town, I was like, yeah, I get it. Like, sometimes you really feel that way. Sometimes that kind of stuff, it eats at you, and you don't want anything to do with it. Because it does feel, I think, like the people are just trash and the people don't give a shit. They don't give a shit about anybody but themselves. And I loved how Eddie was able to really express that, get that across, and it definitely reminded me of how I felt about that one place that I used to live when I was a teenager. It wasn't my whole life, but it was a chunk of my life when I was a teenager that is very memorable, and that I hated. Like, I hated that part of my life. I hated my place in the world. I was very uncomfortable there, and the people there made me feel uncomfortable. They made me feel like they made me feel like they treated everyone this way. Everyone that wasn't from there, everyone that didn't fit exactly into some freaking stereotypical version of what they thought was ideal, they just treated like outcast, and they treated them horribly. And that's how I felt. I felt it for everybody in my family, a lot of my friends, people that I hung out with in the school, all were treated this way by most of the people in the town that we knew. And it was awful. It was degrading. So yeah, that was my favorite scene, because I was like, yeah, I really relate to this. I get it. I get where that fucking anger and frustration is coming from. All right. Worst scene. Let's see. What did I put here? Okay. All right. So towards the end of the episode, Blunt comes up to try to arrest Eddie's dad. And I don't have a problem necessarily with him arresting Eddie's dad, but there was already this confusing scene, like this, all this stuff was going on, and I was trying to make sense of what was going on, and then this guy goes up, like after somebody else had just showed up on the scene that I didn't understand who he was or what he had to do with the situation, and then Blunt comes up and tries to arrest Eddie's father, which completely detracts from the rest of the scene and what's going on. So I still can't make sense of who this person is that just came on the scene and what exactly is going on. So that for me was my least favorite scene, was when Blunt come on the scene to arrest his dad. Not because he was arresting her dad, not because he was arresting Eddie's dad, but because he just like took away this opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about what was actually going on and who this other person was that just came on the scene. Because I thought, I don't know, to me, I needed that information. I wanted that information. And now we don't have that information. We get all the way through the episode and still don't know who the guy was that come out. We don't know exactly what was going on. Because this guy comes up to arrest him, and not even for something that he did. So, like, he's just, because he is, just like they kept making wrong assumptions on the first season with the cases that they were doing then at the beginning. Just like they were following bullshit leads and not evaluating everything the way that it should be, that they kept making wrong assumptions and making wrong connections. Just like that, that's what this guy was doing, making incorrect assumptions, making incorrect decisions based on incorrect judgments, because he wasn't doing the right thing by this case. But yeah, that was my least favorite scene. I think that's it. I think that's all I've got. So I know we're only 23 minutes in, and I don't have anything else, but I know that in some of the other after watches I do, I'll do like after I do the gist and put on a teaser trailer or interview or whatever it is. Sometimes I'll go back and do a kind of play-by-play, like this is what happened. Maybe I'll do that next time. Not like every single little thing that happened in the entire show, but just a brief rundown. And I could probably do that. I haven't set up notes for that, though. I think I thought it was going to take me a little longer than it has, and it didn't. I also thought I would find more. I thought I might find more teasers, but I keep forgetting that when they drop the entire season, they don't tend to put teasers for the next episode because all the episodes are already out. Like, you you could binge the whole thing, but I don't really like binging shows anymore. Ever since COVID, I don't like binging shows. I like to give them some time to digest, to figure out what's going on, to put a little breath and space between the next episode, that kind of thing. But, I don't know, have I given enough information about this episode? I mean, if somebody started watching my live stream who has never watched Deadloch, they're not going to know what actually happened in the show. They're not going to know what's happened in the previous season. I do have an introductory live stream that I did that talked about what happened last season and what might happen this season. I was totally wrong though, which I think I sort of touched on. I thought that once they caught on to the information for this case with the gator and parts being found in the gator, I thought that was going to take them to a completely different place and take them away from where Eddie lived and take them away from a place that Eddie knew and was comfortable with. And I was wrong, because it turns out that Bear Creek is actually Eddie's home. So even though I think they showed the mile marker at one point to Bear Creek was like 100 and something miles. I think it was like 120 or 170, something like that. So you knew it was a pretty hefty drive from there, but not terribly far. And we knew it was still like the hot part of Australia, but it's not that far. It's not that far. So they are going away from Darwin, but they're not going that far from Darwin. And even though Darwin is where Eddie lived most previously from the first season, that Bear Creek apparently was his home before Darwin. So yeah, so I was wrong about that. I thought it was going to be like a completely different case, completely different place, still hot and humid, but like more rural, which it is. It is more rural, and it's rural in a different kind of way than the last season. The last season, where were we? We were in Deadloch. Last season, it's interesting that they kept the name Deadloch. Deadloch was the name of the place last season. But that area of Australia is very cold and gray and dreary, whereas this is very hot and humid and musty and all that. I think Dulcie at one point says that the air is so thick. She's like, how can you move in this environment? The air is so thick. And I don't remember what the comment was that she said, but she made some comment about it being so thick. But yeah, anyway, I think that's all I'm going to say though about this episode. I will talk to you after I get the next episode done, and I think I will do a kind of play-by-play after I do whatever I decide to show. I know I have a couple more clips that I plan to show since they don't have teasers for the coming episodes. There are other clips that I've found on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. I will evaluate. Usually I try to play that stuff for the first time when I put it on here. But with these, I'm going to actually evaluate them ahead of time to make sure that I'm okay with what they are and that they're at least a little interesting. At least to me, they might not be interesting to you, but to me they're interesting. So I'll evaluate them first, and then I will play them on the live stream. And we'll do the VIP, the piece of shit of the episode, favorite scene, least favorite scene. I don't really do like rating or grading the episode. I have done it in the past, but not often. Sometimes at the end of the season, I will try to like rank them first, second, third, fourth, fifth, up to the end. I know the last one, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I was planning to do that and I never did. But sometimes I do. We'll see. But for the most part, it's going to be, I will introduce myself, give you the gist of the episode. I will put on a little clip if I have one to show you. Then we can do a kind of play-by-play, just a brief play-by-play, not like in detail every little thing that happens. And then we can go through the VIP piece of shit, the favorite scene and the least favorite scene. And that'll be it. So that's all I got for you. I'll see you next week. Bye.